I was sitting inside my car in the parking lot of a small diner in Ashwood, Kentucky, staring at a photo on my phone. It was a torn page from the Sunday crossword puzzle. 4 words were circled in blue ink. The handwriting was weak. Years of arthritis will do that to a person. But the message was clear. I had been waiting nearly 3 years for that signal. For 10 years, my family told everyone I was a failure. They mocked me at church dinners. They mocked me at weddings. They even mocked me at my grandfather's funeral reception. What they never knew was that I investigate people exactly like them for a living, and my grandmother had just sent me a code. What happened at our Thanksgiving dinner 30 minutes later ended up becoming the biggest scandal this town had seen in years. But before I tell you about that night, you need to understand how a family slowly decides one of their own is worthless, and what happens when they discover they were wrong. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. I'm Hannah. I'm 35 years old, and this is the story of how my family tried to erase me and how a crossword puzzle destroyed every lie they built. If you've ever been the person nobody believed in, the one your family whispered about behind closed doors, stay with me, leave a comment, and subscribe. Most mornings, I'm at my desk before 7 a.m. My office sits on the 4th floor of the Jefferson County Government Building in Louisville, Kentucky. Gray walls, fluorescent lights, cheap coffee, nothing glamorous. The nameplate on my desk reads, Senior Investigator, Adult Protective Services. I've held that title for 7 years. Before that, I spent 3 years as a field caseworker, 10 years total, 10 years protecting elderly people from financial abuse, neglect, and exploitation. In that time, my department recovered more than $4 million stolen from elderly victims, savings drained by sons, retirement funds emptied by daughters, property stolen by relatives who believed nobody would notice. 52 closed investigations carried my name, 52 families got truth, 52 victims got justice. I'm very good at my job. I can detect forged signatures in seconds. I can read bank statements the way mechanics read engines. I know when something belongs, and I know when something is missing. The cruel irony? My own family knew none of that. To them, I was just Hannah, the daughter who left town after high school, the girl who never came back, the disappointment. My grandmother, Margaret Cole, was the only one who truly knew me. Our crossword tradition began when I was 8. Every Sunday morning, we sat together on the porch of her farmhouse and solved the crossword from the local newspaper. She let me hold the pencil. I filled easy answers, colors, animals, short words. She handled the hard ones, but she always explained every answer. 7 across, she'd say. Persistence means you keep going even when things get hard. Grandma Margaret taught 3rd grade for 38 years. She retired with a pension, savings, and the farmhouse that had been in our family for generations. She was disciplined, careful, organized, every bill paid on time, every receipt saved, every dollar accounted for. That woman never forgot a payment in her life, which is why everything changed the moment I noticed something was wrong. 2 years before that Thanksgiving, the phone calls started changing. Grandma and I had a routine. Every Wednesday evening, right after her favorite quiz show ended, she called me from the kitchen phone. Most calls lasted 40 minutes, sometimes longer. We talked about everything: her garden, my work, the crossword puzzle that week, life. Then slowly the calls became shorter. 40 minutes became 20, 20 became 10. Then came the sentence that started repeating in every call. Hannah, I can't talk long. At first, I ignored it. Then I started noticing the pattern. She only called when my mother, Carol, left the house. Wednesdays, usually grocery shopping, almost exactly 45 minutes. That kind of pattern gets hard to ignore when investigation is your career. Then one Wednesday, she said something that made every alarm in my head go off. They changed my medicine, sweetheart. I don't really know what I'm taking anymore. I froze. Medication confusion is one of the biggest warning signs in elder abuse cases. It often means control, dependency, isolation. I asked if I could visit that weekend. She hesitated, then quietly said, "Call first." That hesitation told me everything. I called Saturday morning. My mother answered, "She's sleeping." I called Sunday. "She doesn't want visitors." I tried again the following week. Same answer, same cold voice, same barrier. I even called my older brother Tyler. He still lived in Ashwood, still worked at Miller Hardware, still believed staying meant loyalty. His response came instantly. "She's fine, Hannah. Mom's taking care of her. Stop creating problems." I stared at my phone after that message. I had heard those exact words in dozens of case files. "She's fine. Stop interfering. Leave us alone. Different families. Same script." That was the moment the investigator inside me stopped making excuses. Monday morning, I sat at my office reviewing another case. An 81-year-old widow. Her nephew had stolen Social Security payments for nearly 2 years. The evidence was obvious: isolation, financial control, dependency, standard abuse pattern. By Friday, charges were filed. Case closed. The woman cried in my office, not from sadness, relief. She whispered, "You saved me." I told her what I always tell victims. "No, you saved yourself by asking for help." That evening, driving home, those words kept replaying in my head. My grandmother had never asked for help. Not directly, but what if she wanted to and couldn't? That question followed me for months. Then 3 months later, I checked county tax records during lunch. Property records are public. Anyone can access them. No warrant needed. I typed Margaret Cole, Jefferson County, search. The result appeared in seconds. Delinquent, 6 months overdue, $4,870 owed. I stopped breathing for a second. No, that wasn't possible. Grandma paid every tax bill the first week of January, every year, without fail, 38 years, not once late, and now 6 months overdue. That's when suspicion became something darker, because I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Margaret Cole did not forget bills. If bills were unpaid, someone else was controlling the money. I needed proof. Suspicion wasn't enough. In my line of work, feelings don't build cases. Evidence does. So I called the one person in Ashwood who always noticed everything. Mrs. Eleanor Hayes, 72 years old, my grandmother's neighbor for nearly 30 years. They exchanged garden vegetables, shared coffee on Sundays, and knew each other's routines better than most relatives. When she answered, her voice dropped immediately. "Hannah, something feels wrong." I grabbed a notebook. "What have you seen?" She exhaled slowly. "Your mother doesn't let Margaret outside much anymore." My pen stopped. "What do you mean?" "She used to sit on the porch every morning. Haven't seen that in months." That was bad. Isolation always starts small. One routine disappears, then another. Then the victim slowly vanishes from public life. I asked about my stepfather, Daniel. Mrs. Hayes hesitated. "He's been coming around more." "How often?" 3, maybe 4 times a week." "For what?" Silence. Then, "He bought a new truck." I frowned. Daniel had been struggling financially for years. Bad debt, sports betting, loan payments. Yet suddenly, "A new truck?" Mrs. Hayes continued. "New boots, too." Then she said the sentence I wrote down word for word. "But your grandmother's gutters are falling apart." I stared at the page. New truck, new boots, delinquent taxes, neglected house. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. I wrote everything down. Dates, observations, statements. Not an official case file, not yet. Just documentation, exactly what I tell families to do. Document first, build facts, let evidence speak. The following Wednesday, Mrs. Hayes called again. "Carol just left for the grocery store." My heart started pounding. "She'll be gone 45 minutes. Then she said the words that changed everything. "I can get to your grandmother." I stood so fast my chair nearly fell backward. Mrs. Hayes explained there was a small gap in the hedge separating their properties. Carol never noticed it. Every Wednesday, while my mother was away, Mrs. Hayes could quietly walk over. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered immediately. "Hello?" Silence. Then, "Hannah?" "Grandma." Her voice sounded thin, fragile, older than I remembered. My throat tightened. "Grandma." She started talking fast, too fast, like someone racing against a clock. "Daniel handles the money now." I said nothing, just listened. All of it. Pause. "I don't see bank statements anymore." Another pause. "Your mother says it's easier this way." I closed my eyes. There it was, financial control, direct confirmation. Then came the sentence that hit hardest. "Hannah, I think I'm making mistakes." I opened my eyes. No. That didn't sound like her. Not my grandmother. Not Margaret Cole. I asked carefully. "What kind of mistakes?" Long silence. Then she whispered, "I don't know anymore." That sentence chilled me because victims don't lose confidence overnight. Someone takes it from them, slowly, repeatedly, until they stop trusting their own mind, and that is exactly how abusers win. I lowered my voice. Grandma, has anyone stopped you from seeing your finances? She hesitated, then quietly said, yes. That one word changed everything. This was no longer suspicion. This was a case. I drove to Ashwood that Saturday, 40 minutes from Louisville. The entire drive, my investigator brain kept organizing facts. Confirmed isolation, medication confusion, restricted financial access, unpaid property taxes, possible coercion, enough red flags to justify serious concern. I pulled into the gravel driveway of the farmhouse where I grew up. The porch looked different, not aged, neglected. Dead flower pots sat near the railing. The garden beds were full of weeds. My grandmother's roses were gone. That alone felt wrong. Grandma loved those roses. She cared for them like family. I walked to the front door and knocked. 3 seconds later, my mother opened it. Only halfway, blocking the entrance with her body. Her expression hardened the moment she saw me. What do you want? No hello, no warmth, just hostility. I kept my tone calm. I'm here to see Grandma. She's resting. I'll wait. She doesn't want visitors. I looked past her shoulder. Television noise blasted from the living room. My grandmother hated loud television. She liked quiet, books, crosswords, classical music, not daytime game shows at full volume. That detail bothered me immediately. Sensory overload is another control tactic. Noise keeps victims disoriented. I met my mother's eyes. I'll sit on the porch until she's awake. Her jaw tightened. Then she said coldly, suit yourself. She shut the door. I sat in Grandma's wicker chair, the same chair where we solved crosswords. 2 hours passed. No one came outside. Then a black pickup truck pulled into the driveway. Daniel. He stepped out wearing brand new work boots and a fresh jacket with store tags still attached. He saw me and frowned. Still here? I stood. Yes. He crossed his arms. Nobody asked you to come. I looked at the truck. Shiny paint, chrome trim, expensive tires. Then I looked at the broken gutters hanging off Grandma's roof. The contrast made my stomach turn. I spoke quietly. Nice truck. He didn't answer. His face changed, just slightly, but I saw it. Defensiveness, awareness, guilt. He turned and went inside without another word. I stayed 5 more minutes, then drove home. That night, I opened a fresh notebook. This time, I labeled it. Margaret Cole, personal log, date, time, access denied, observations, vehicle purchase, property neglect, possible environmental manipulation. I underlined one sentence. No voluntary access to victim. That sentence mattered, because once access is blocked, abuse accelerates. 3 days later, everything changed. Mrs. Hayes called me before noon. Her voice was shaking. Hannah, I found something. What? She had a second savings account. I froze. Grandma had never mentioned that. Mrs. Hayes explained. 10 years earlier, Grandma opened a backup account at a local bank. Emergency savings. Only 2 names had access. Grandma and Mrs. Hayes. That was Margaret. Always planning ahead, always preparing for worst-case scenarios. Mrs. Hayes had gone to the bank that morning. She requested recent statements. What she found made her sick. 3 ATM withdrawals, $500 each, all within 2 months, all on Wednesdays. Same day as grocery runs, same time window my mother left the house. I didn't need more explanation. I already knew. Someone had the PIN, someone was draining the account, and if they touched the backup account, the main account would be far worse. I closed my notebook slowly. My voice turned cold. Professional, focused, certain. I need those statements. Mrs. Hayes whispered, I'm bringing them now. I looked out my apartment window toward the Louisville skyline. For months I had been hoping I was wrong, hoping there was another explanation. There wasn't. The moment those statements reached my hands, I knew exactly what came next. I would stop being granddaughter first and become investigator. Mrs. Hayes met me that afternoon at a small cafe just outside downtown Louisville. She slid the bank statements across the table. I studied every page, dates, amounts, ATM locations, patterns, 3 withdrawals, $500 each. Every single one happened on Wednesday mornings, same route, same timing, same window my mother went grocery shopping. My chest tightened. This was no longer suspicion. This was evidence. And evidence changes everything. The next morning, I sat across from my supervisor. I placed the statements on his desk. My voice stayed steady. I need to file a third-party elder abuse report. He looked down at the paperwork, then back at me. Victim? I swallowed. My grandmother. Silence filled the office, then he nodded. Conflict of interest. I know. You can't lead this. I'm not asking to. I slid the folder forward. I'm asking for an investigation. Within days, subpoenas were approved, bank records arrived, and when they did, the truth was worse than anything I imagined. Grandma's primary account had held over $142,000 2 years earlier. Her life savings, teacher salary, pension, decades of discipline, now almost gone. Repeated transfers, fake invoices, cash withdrawals, personal deposits, more than $130,000 missing. I stared at the final balance, $3,906, 40 years of work, reduced to that. That night, I sat alone in my apartment and cried for the first time in years. Not because of the money, because I finally understood something painful. My family never believed I was useless. They needed me to be useless. Because if they admitted what I really was, their lies would collapse. 2 weeks later, the signal arrived. Wednesday morning, Mrs. Hayes texted me a photograph, a torn crossword page, 4 words circled in blue ink, help, trapped, call, and one final word at the bottom, Thanksgiving. My grandmother had chosen the day. She wanted witnesses, family, everyone. She wanted the truth exposed where no one could deny it. Thanksgiving afternoon, I returned to the farmhouse. But this time, I wasn't alone. An APS investigator walked beside me. A county deputy stood on my other side. 3 of us climbed those porch steps together. I knocked. 3 firm knocks. The door opened. My brother stood there. His smile vanished the moment he saw us. We walked inside. 20 people sat around the Thanksgiving table. Turkey steaming, plates full, laughter gone, silence everywhere. At the end of the table sat Grandma, blue cardigan, hands folded, waiting. The investigator placed documents on the table. Bank statements, court papers, evidence. Then she said the words that shattered the room. "We are investigating financial exploitation of Margaret Cole." Gasps, shock, panic. My mother went pale. Daniel froze. My mother pointed at me. "You did this?" I looked straight at her and said the truth they had spent 10 years mocking. "My name is Hannah Cole." I paused. "Senior investigator, Adult Protective Services." Silence, complete silence, every face changed, every lie collapsed. I looked around the room, at relatives, at neighbors, at everyone who believed I was nothing. Then I said quietly, "You spent years telling people I did nothing in Louisville." I looked at my mother. "Now you know what I do." Grandma slowly stood. The room turned toward her. She held the crossword page in her shaking hand. Her voice was weak, but clear. "They took everything." She lifted the paper slightly, "except this." Tears filled in my mother's eyes, not remorse, exposure. There's a difference. Within months, charges were filed, assets were frozen, Grandma's finances were restored, the house was repaired, the property taxes were paid, and for the first time in years, she was safe. Spring came, the garden returned, roses bloomed again. One Sunday morning, I sat beside Grandma on the porch. Just like old times, she handed me a pencil. We worked the crossword in silence, then she tapped one clue. 9 letters. What remains after truth wins? I smiled. I knew the answer. Freedom. She nodded and filled it in. Sometimes the people everyone underestimates are the ones fighting the hardest battles in silence. And sometimes all it takes to destroy years of lies is a crossword puzzle.